Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Karen Mayfield Felton. I am here with Feet Planted LLC and the illustrious Karen Harper, who is the president of BEST. We are here to celebrate women as it is Women's History Month. The theme that we're going to talk about is women leading with courage. But as you know, I come into every live session with music. This music has been curated by my favorite person, my partner, Mr. Al Felton. He made this beat. And so this is what we're going to listen to. It gives us a little bit of energy as we start this wonderful conversation with a dear, dear friend of mine. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to turn this music down. All right. Hello, Miss Harper. So first and foremost, for you all, for me to call her Miss Harper, it's because I call her Karen. My name is Karen too. So it is out of the utmost respect that I refer to her as Miss Harper. We have known each other at this point, I think, for almost 7 or 8 years. And we met doing what we love to do, which is being in the midst of STEM spaces. So if you don't know anything about me or Feet Planted LLC, I am a STEM professional and I have a passion for helping early career professionals, especially girls, succeed in STEM and in life. And you are all in for a treat. Ms. Harper has very similar missions, an amazing story to tell, and I can't wait to get started. So welcome, Ms. Harper. How are you? You doing good?
Good afternoon. I am doing fine. Yes, absolutely.
That is wonderful. So let's make everybody acquainted with you. I already know all the good stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Just give us a couple of minute overview and share with everyone who you are and what you are about.
So, Karen, while you know, and you've reviewed my bio, what you don't know is that I was a young girl growing up on a farm in Ohio. And that is my humble beginnings of being a farm girl. But what I can say to you is that didn't define me. And I have experienced a long and inspiring career, sometimes creating my own path, which included some challenges and some triumphs, certainly. My career journey spans 47 years. And I start counting back, I'm thinking, has it really been that long? But yes, it has. It's been 47 years, to include my early career with the Urban League, a community-based organization with affiliates all across the country. And that was based in helping women get into non-traditional construction trades. So that was part of my early career. Once leaving the Urban League, I started working for the federal government. So I've worked for the Environmental Protection Agency, the Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio, the NASA in Cleveland and in Washington, D.C., and the Department of Defense. So that has covered a span my federal career. I retired in 2014 after 34 years of work with the federal government, only to be retired for 1 week and to begin my journey. And this is the passion part of my journey of working for building engineering and science talent, for which I am now the president of the organization. So that is part of my early journey, a little bit about who I am. And the important message that I would say is that has made me very cognizant of how I give and why I give back, particularly with girls and women.
Okay. You did not just say 40. Did you say 47 years?
Absolutely, 47.
Wow.
We won't count the years that I did minimum wage jobs. Okay. We won't count those. My career spans 47 years. Yes.
Well, that's a history. A lot of stories I know are embedded in those years, and I just want to say that I had the pleasure of attending the event that where you became the president of BEST in December, and it was a tribute to the legacy that you're leaving um, behind for those of us to follow in your stardust. I mean, you've served in so many different capacities. You mentioned working at NASA. You have such a tremendous history, not just in the workforce, but also in the STEM space, which is remarkable. Can you just talk about a little bit before we get into the theme? Can you talk about BEST and some of the work that you do and that BEST does?
Well, BEST is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2001, and it was deliberately developed to address underserved minorities and women in engineering and science. And so for the early years, BEST was doing a lot of work in developing reports, doing research around best practices of reaching underserved minorities, particularly women and minorities of all backgrounds. So that was the early years of BEST. When let's fast forward a number of years, when I joined BEST was in 2014, and this was at the time that BEST was working for the department as a contractor for the Department of Defense. And my role, I was working on a project which was launching the framework for a STEM diversity campaign for the Department of Defense. And so that important work was looking at how do we begin to continue to move the needle of building a more diverse pipeline. And that work was involved with really doing more grassroots efforts of building relationships across let's say, the early years of that work was to develop relationships across the DC metropolitan area. So we had a footprint in Virginia, DC, and Maryland. That also required me to do a lot of legwork. And that legwork was with schools all across these regions, meeting with teachers, meeting with school officials, administrators, trying to get our foot in the door to determine how could we be of assistance? What could we do to help the school districts reaching underserved and underrepresented minority students? How could we help facilitate providing professional development for educators? So we had our work cut out for us as we began to develop relationships with schools. But what happened was it began to thrive. We began to thrive in making connections with educators, being able to provide professional development for educators, STEM enrichment activities for students, and to be able to even expose students to the Department of Defense STEM professionals. So we were very much involved with the community, and we engaged with collaborators that brought content. We're service providers, content providers to help teachers provide more exposure to STEM careers and to STEM activities. So nothing was more exciting for me than to get my feet wet, to get dirty, to get on the ground and to really engage with students and to watch them have their aha moments. I will reflect on one particular experience where BEST supported a group of girls from Southwest Middle School in Baltimore County, where we sponsored a group of 40 girls, middle school girls, to go to the aquarium in Baltimore. And this was a night of sleeping with the sharks. And so we did an overnight. I had my blow up bed and did an overnight experience with the girls. But what was more important is we also invited female midshipmen from the Naval Academy that were majors in the science fields, particularly in biology. And we had 4 young women join us in this overnight experience. So it was an absolute wonderful experience to see the girls have such wonderful experience and to have an opportunity. Some girls living right in Baltimore County or Baltimore City had never been to the aquarium. And so for us to be able to afford them an opportunity to experience that. And so my takeaway was having one young girl who was scared to put her hand in to touch a jellyfish. And so we both peered into the aquarium. And I said, okay, on the count of 3, let's both dip our hand in and touch the jellyfish. And so she did the countdown, we both touched it, and she was just amazed at the experience. So let's do it again. So those moments, and that was 8 years ago, and that's still fresh in my mind, that I can still have that reflection of that girl's aha moment.
I love it. I love it. You just summarized and captured visually the work that a lot of us do in the STEM space. I just want to touch on a couple of things that you said that I loved, and that is afraid to put hand in water, new experience, and you did it together. On the count of 3, let's do it together. And that experience was eye-opening. To me, that summarizes the effect and impact that we want to have for all children. We're going to focus on our girl children because it's Women's History Month, but that's the effect that we want, that I can do it. I can do hard things. I may be scared, but when there is someone alongside me that looks like me, that even helps the more, that is here with me and taking the journey, and we're doing it together, that epitomizes what it is for us to do the work in STEM. Not to mention, I already know about you getting on the floor, shooting Swiffers across the gymnasium floor when we were so I can picture the night out at the aquarium. I think that is great. You also said something that is very applicable to the theme that we're talking about, which is women leading in courage. And so as you see young girls and young adults and folks that are maybe longer in the season in their career, you have a pretty good idea of what courage looks like, I gather. So can you talk to us about what courage means to you?
Let me start by saying that there are many definitions of courage. But for me, it means to be brave for what you believe in, even if you stand alone. And when I say that, I feel it. And that's the important thing, is that to be brave for what you believe in. And when I share with you that my journey has had triumphs and it's had challenges, and sometimes you do stand alone, but when you can weather that and stand tall, then you can begin to believe that courage is like that stroke of fresh air that can help lift you up. when you remember on the lifting your wings, it's that kind of feeling of having courage. And courage is an important tool. It's an important aspect for all of us to be able to say that we have courage. But I will also tell you that having courage for me also is grounded in what I believe about myself, and the fact that courage allows me to maintain my integrity. And so I connect those two in terms of, if I maintain my integrity and I hold steadfast, that I can't be swayed or deterred from what I believe in, what I find is for me a foundation. And even when you have those that may challenge it, you stand in your truth, is basically what that means, is to be able to not be shaken, even though the wind or the storm might be whirling around you, that you stand in your courage of saying, I'm not going to break loose from this.
I love it. I love it. So for those folks out there that know me, I say I love it. I say amazing. The journey of a STEM professional as an African American woman requires fortitude. It requires courage. And you said some really good words that really stick with me. Fresh air, courage. If I could use it in my own words, courage gives you wings. You know that commercial, Red Bull gives you wings.
Yeah,
Courage
absolutely.
gives you the ability, based on your description, to take flight from where you are, standing firm. You're not wavering. You're not unsure. And oh, by the way, even if you are unsure, it doesn't change the trajectory of your launch. And I love that. I love that. So, I've got to ask a question based off of what you said. Can you share with us what has helped you stand firm? Because first of all, folks, I'm taking notes. Don't think that I'm having these women up here and I'm not learning something. So if you see me writing, I am taking notes myself. I wrote down steadfast and having integrity, believing in oneself. What has helped you do that over the course of your journey in STEM or your life within your organization? You decide which vantage point you'd like to share.
So let me just say that courage also helps to build confidence. And it takes courage. And I'm going to go back to something I said a few minutes ago. It takes courage to stand against the wind. And so when you're anchored with that, you're able to move. It's always, go back to, it takes the smallness of a mustard seed to move a mountain. And so sometimes I reflect on being that mustard seed, and that is, that's quite a leap for anyone. But for women, it's important to know that even the smallness of a mustard seed can be transformative. And so when the fact that I did not have an opportunity to experience a STEM journey, so I do not have the background of engineering and science and technology.
But you've got the work.
I've done the work.
Yes.
I have the passion. So I may not be trained, but I have the passion and the desire. And so when you combine those and the deep root from me of knowing that I can make a difference, I can make a difference in the life and the trajectory of a young girl and a young woman in what they aspire to do. and to help nurture that. So my journey over the years, I've been mentoring for probably 30 years. Even when mentoring wasn't the coin term, I was mentoring and taking girls, kind of adopting young girls in middle school and working with them after school and on weekends, taking them maybe out for lunch and experiencing what it's like to have etiquette in a restaurant, or being having silence in a library, and knowing, what those experiences are, and the fun of acting silly, but also knowing that they had someone to depend on. And so in my early career, in my mentoring career, I spent a lot of time mentoring girls in school and after school. And that just tended to transition to mentoring young women. And I was a young woman at that time too. But I also had some mentors that helped me navigate. And so I felt the obligation to help others navigate. And that meant sometimes helping them understand their messaging, helping them understand how to for African American women, how to deal with defeat, how to deal with being isolated, and how to deal with being marginalized. And so those are important things to have to discover and to have to try to tackle by yourself. So I've spent time trying to do that for myself, navigate, and it's not always easy, but I also feel the responsibility to help others. And this, my family often comments that I am everyone's mentor. I'm the family mentor. I am the friend mentor. I'm the, the colleague mentor. It's just something I believe in. I believe in very deeply. And in such a way that about 10 years ago, I developed this mentoring program called Pearls of Wisdom, Our Braided Lives. And it was about nurturing the experience of a woman of wisdom mentoring a young girl. And I developed this braiding tree. And so this braiding tree was an artificial tree that I spun ribbon, cording, and yarn all throughout this tree. And I would do mentoring sessions with women and girls, and I would invite them to identify with a woman throughout life. If it's a known, like Maya Angelou, or Oprah Winfrey, or Harriet Tubman, any woman that has stood out for them. And I would give them a sheet of a number of women that would stand out. And I would ask them how do they connect with that woman? And so they would spend a few minutes talking about that woman. And many times the young girl didn't know anything about that woman. And maybe the woman of wisdom, the mentor, would. But I would also invite them, after a few minutes of discussion, I invite them to the braiding tree. And so they would braid their lives together using yarn. Yarn represented the young girl. Yarn is very loose and fragile. It's the thing that just kind of flows around. Then there was cording. Cording represents, cording is strong. And so it represents the woman of wisdom, the more seasoned woman. And then the ribbon would be what kind of blends them, because ribbon can be silky. And so when they come to the braidry, they would actually braid their lives together using the three elements that were all spread out through across the tree. And then they would talk about that experience of braiding. And so what was phenomenal was to have some girls and women talking about, well, that's not how I knew how to braid. And I learned how to braid this way. And so the interesting
Shared
aspect was
experiences.
to hear the shared experience, but also the value, kind of ceremonial, was to braid their lives together. And so I've done those kinds of workshops over the years to really engage in a real kind of way. How do your lives connect? What are those intersections of a young girl's life with a woman of wisdom? And how do they learn from one another? So that is something, again, I believe very deeply. And even from the concept, the very concept of the pearls of wisdom, our braided lives, was very emotional for me, because I had part of that topic. I had that theme in my head. And when I shared it with my sister, I said, there's something missing. The pearls of wisdom and what? And we got to talking. She says, well, what about braiding their lives? And so that became the theme. And I have spent years cultivating that whole concept of braiding your lives together.
That's remarkable. We've talked about this before. I'm just going to ping off of a couple of things that you said, and understanding how to develop courage. It is typically through adversity, and it is often better to go on that journey with someone. So the opportunity to learn and connect yourself to someone who is more seasoned, or someone that you can relate to, you start to see yourself. I can imagine as a young girl, shucks, I can imagine now, I can start to see myself in that individual, and be able to say, if they can do it, so can I. And
Absolutely.
that braid, that connection, for those of you out there, Google braids if you're not sure what we're talking about. But it is a rite of passage, not only to the African American experience for females in terms of hair, but the act of connecting the strands together is the process by which we learn about ourselves, we learn about other people. And so when we talk about women leading with courage, what you're hearing, folks, is an effort, an initiative where you actually sit with people. It's not something that can be done in a vacuum. And that's one of the things that I love about creating spaces and meeting women like you, is that it's always a connection. We emerge from that experience. Those young girls emerge from that experience that you provided them with a different perspective. And I'm sure the ability to know that they can do things that are different than their day to day, which I think is absolutely important. You also mentioned about not necessarily having the technical degree in the STEM space. Folks, strike that from the comments. Ms. Harper, let me tell you, has been pivotal and is pivotal not only in her early work, but in the position she's in now as the president of BEST, to create infrastructure, to create opportunities for not just the young girls, but for women like me, because I consider you to be a mentor as well. We've had multiple phone calls talking about this very topic.
Absolutely.
And how we activate courage. You said early on in the segment about the definition to you means being able to stand alone. We have a lot of our peers and our young girls being either the first or the few, the only, and or not having someone in their immediate space that they can either talk to or commiserate with. So the next question fits perfectly in the story that you set for me. How are you instilling courage either in girls or in the folks that you are reaching and targeting at best?
Well, I think to begin with, as I referred to earlier, it takes courage to stand against the wind. So when I talk to young girls and women in the STEM space, I point out to them that you might be a part of a group, a class, among friends, but if you are desiring to dream, to pursue a dream, that you have to have the courage to do that. So you might be alone, standing alone in that space of with your dream, and you might not get the encouragement from that community that you are in, classroom, a social environment or social network. But if it's about exploring what that dream could mean and what the reality might look like for you. And so it's about having courage to not be swayed, to say, drop that dream. That's not for you. You can't do that. Because I experienced that in high school. That was my experience. You are not college material. You shouldn't go to college. You shouldn't, you don't have that kind of dream. But we can't continue to foster or to allow that kind of deterrence thrive for our girls of this generation and the generation behind them. We want to nurture, we want to not only nurture that, but to help them for it to expand, for them to dream big, to follow those exciting moments of ahas where they feel like, I may not know what I want to be, but I know I'm interested in it. I mean, I think we've all experienced, particularly women have experienced, you're not good in math. And so you begin to believe I'm not good in math. And we don't want that concept to be continued. To me, that's like a cancer, a growth that you just want to, say, get out of me or get away from me. We don't want that negativity to have an opportunity to grow. So what we do want is an opportunity for young girls and women to dream the biggest dream that they can. If it's ability to see themselves in an opportunity, to see themselves in a space where they can thrive. And when I look at being able to thrive in that, and you glow, and you also dream about, how do I share my excitement? And I think that's the important message of not only having the excitement within you, but that is picked up by others. And it's contagious. It's about letting others in on that being contagious. And how can I help you? How can I help foster and facilitate your next steps?
I'm jumping out of my red blazer over here. You all can't see it. You see a very contained and calm person, but on the inside, I'm like, yeah. Folks, let me just explain something to you real quick. When this is purpose, when it's specifically your purpose, this is the work that makes me sit up in my chair. I've said that many times in talking to students and just listening to you describe, how important it is, dreaming big. You and I both know that there was an event that was going to happen at the beginning of the pandemic that didn't entitle Dream Big, where we were going to actually pull girls together as well as the women in the STEM space and in leadership so that they could actually see and actually talk to and be in proximity with women like yourselves that are inspirational, that have the ability to allow our young girls to dream the impossible dream. And so this wasn't one of the questions on our list, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I believe that when as someone is out there watching, they may be asking a question. It could be a parent, it could be a student. They could be asking themselves, "But that's all well and good. But what do I do when I've tried the things, I've believed in myself, and I just don't know what to do next?" Because courage is about willing to stand alone and it's about pushing through. But sometimes it's hard. We're not here to tell you that it's easy. What would you say to that individual out there that says, I just I'm not sure I can do it. And I'm not sure what I need to do next in my journey. And this could be for STEM or a life journey applicable to both. What would you say to that individual?
Well, let me start with it's about self-talk, truly self-talk. I'm a new president of BEST, all of 60 days, okay? So there are moments of self-talk, deep self-talk for me, because I'm also experiencing a new part of my journey. I have a career journey, but this is the continuation of that journey. So what I would say is this is where you have to reach out and try to surround yourself with reinforcement. You need the affirmation that this could be a setback. And setbacks can also help you leap forward. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about here is that when you say you can't do it, when you've been told you can't do it, that's not for you. It's not your time. You're not promotion. You're not ready for that next promotion. When you're told, you still need all these experiences and you go out and chase after these experiences. And guess what? There's an additional mountain to climb. And then sometimes you have to say, okay, I'm going to step back, get silent, and begin to reevaluate what I want to do. How do I want to tackle this? And this can be for a young girl. It can be for a mid-career woman or woman later in her journey. And, sometimes it is about stepping back. And I repeat myself, this is also my self-talk is about reevaluating what it is that's so important about this journey. And that's where I go back again to a statement I made earlier, is walking against the wind. If that is so important to you, if that pursuit is your ultimate dream, then you will look to find small, even if it's taking step back, to maybe take small steps forward again. And maybe it won't be the big leaps, but it could be small steps. And maybe that will help you become more grounded and develop that inner strength to continue, to help you continue in your journey. So I would continue to say that it's within you, to look within yourself and then to anchor yourself with a network and folks that believe in you, folks that want to help you. And I think in doing that, you will begin to rebuild and frame that courage in a way that gives you that strength. It puts, if you can imagine having more cement in your feet, you're plastered, kind of standing in plaster, that you want to have that foundation that's strong, and then begin to build back up again. So it may not have, the image may not be easy, but it is so worth it to explore that. And I have to also say that accepting failure as a part of the journey. Our journeys are not designed to be a fast race and one where you success all the way around. You know, you've hit all success buckets and everything is just peachy keen and wonderful. There are going to be failures, and those can be disappointing. Turn the disappointment into reward by looking at how can I get over that disappointment? What did I learn that disappointment? How can I recoup? And then begin to repackage yourself sometimes. I have had many people tell me that Karen has more than 9 lives, okay? I have redefined myself in many different ways. In my career paths have not always just been in a straight line.
Wow. Every answer you give just unpacks another layer of wisdom. So what I heard and what I hope, first of all, I hope you all are out there taking notes. I hope you're taking notes. Courage often is self-promoted. You often have to be your own hype woman to get you from one place to the next. And what I know from my own life is that opposition will come. I love what you said about, and it doesn't mean that you're always going to get it right, or that when you do take that next step from fear or from a place of I dare say lack or despair, and you do take that next step and it doesn't work out, the steps that you continue to take, those are that's where the gold is, because you're building layers of strength and fortitude from what you tell yourself according to your own answer, but also from just doing it. And of course, it doesn't sound is not as easy as we're making it out to be verbally. It's not easy at all, but and that is what courage is about. It's being resilient. What Miss Harper just described is the definition of resilience, just in case you all didn't know. It is being able to tell yourself to keep going when you don't feel like it, when you don't necessarily have support, and when you don't know what the next steps are going to be, but you keep moving, That is just so good. My next question, again, you're doing a great job of moving us into the next question. Everything relates. Now, as all of you may or may not know, Feet Planted LLC is based and rooted in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, because that is my journey and my background. But it can be what we try to instill and inspire can be applicable and is applicable to life. So please feel free to answer this question how you see fit. Why is having courage important? My question was in STEM, but someone may be listening and say, yeah, that sounds good in theory, but doing nothing is also a course of action. I could do nothing. But why is courage important based on your experience?
I would say that having courage in STEM can mean the difference in finding that one experience that confirms who you are. And there are so many opportunities in STEM, and the ever-growing technologies are endless. And so I think it takes courage to fight the fear of being the only one. We all want that sense of belonging. And those that have been in a STEM career, whether it's through high school, finding out what you want to do in college, tackling the academic pursuit, and in the career journey, finding your niche, it still is navigating. And some of it is you're navigating with a level of fear, because am I going to fit in? And I go back to the sense of belonging. And that is so important, that sense of belonging in a space, in a career that is important to you. Those of us that have been around for a while know what it's like to walk into a class in college and be the only one. And don't let it be the only African American or Latina, woman, and other ethnic groups. Be the only one. That is isolating. And when you're in the career field and you are the only one, and even when you speak up, your voice is not always heard. And so that again ties back to that sense of belonging. Hold steady to your voice. Hold steady to who you are. And so that when you are challenged, that you can still feel that you are where you're supposed to be. And that you will have that opportunity to look in the rearview mirror and say, okay, I learned from that experience. We always don't get our vision just going forward, or we see everything going forward. Sometimes we have to look in the rearview mirror to see where we've been, to be able to help us navigate our continued path.
I have to take a sigh of relief here because you almost get me a little emotional, but because of my own experiences and the times that I have had to, I think the word we're using now is pivot. It can be, I like what you said, it can be very isolating. And oh, by the way, for those of our sisters out there, our BIPOC sisters, our Black, Indigenous, and people of color, you can relate to this in that we're also not always able to show how we feel. So when we say power through and push through, it's not necessarily just us, rallying together with our mindset and powering through. There are times that we are not able to show the struggle. And that is the reason why you are here, Miss Harper, because I want to expose as many women and girls to women who embody courage, who have been able to talk with such wisdom. I mean, I almost want to say the words eloquent, but what sits behind your ability to convey what you're conveying is wisdom and lived experience. That courage to me is at the root of how we continue to press on, how we continue to show up. And oh, by the way, we do not do this alone. We do it in community. And that is my goal, to create community where we can look at each other. I'm looking at the green button on my monitor and to tell that young lady, that early career professional out there, if you're thinking about giving up, you can do it. And Ms. Harper said you can do it too.
Absolutely.
So it's just wonderful. I truly appreciate that. But go ahead. I think you were going to expound, give us some more wisdom.
I'm very proud to say that I've earned my wisdom. And trust me, it came with tears and many Kleenex boxes. I think that's important, that you learn from your experiences and that you just don't wash them away. That those are part of your foundation. And I feel so very strongly about this. It's an important thing. But I would also say that the other thing that is very, very important to me is equity. is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I want to make it known that I really believe in equity and access. And when we look at how paralyzing this country, this world became during the pandemic, I think nothing became more to bear than the inequities that came full steam ahead during the pandemic, of how marginalized our young children of color were left behind, or left in a storm. Let me put it that way, left in a storm of the inequities of access to during a period when schools were not in session and they had to pivot. And well, what do you pivot to? If you don't have a laptop or Wi-Fi at home, how do you participate in a classroom? So that stirs me up every time I begin to talk about it, because it's that important. And I will continue to talk about equity as long as I have energy and am on this journey.
Well, I'm glad that you're talking about it. I too echo that same sentiment. Folks, we're going to have many women that you're going to see and hear their version of it. And I've had a few conversations already. And I must say, you will hear a theme, because that term equity has been brought up, as well as the pandemic revealing some of the systematic issues of access and just the ability to obtain a quality education that already existed. So I appreciate you for bringing that up. I as custom, I always end with my guest having the last word, and I would love for you to speak about the person in your life whom you believe exhibits courage and has impacted you in a meaningful way. Who might that be for you?
Let me just say that there are so many. But at this point, I'm going to say right now, the young woman that is exhibiting courage is my niece, Erica Hines. And she has launched an initiative called Black Women Thriving. And she did a major report about 18 months ago and interviewed over 1,500 women, Black women, about how they are thriving in the workplace. And so I would say I lift her up because it took courage to do the work, to do the research, to launch an international initiative that draws attention to the inequities Black women are experiencing in the workplace. And I contribute her desire to not do this for herself, but to do it for, not just for Black women, but for all women, to draw attention to what it is. What is that one more step that women have to take in order to thrive? And so today, and I've given thought to this, as I said, there would be many others that I would highlight, but I do want to give a shout out to my niece, Erica, for her courage to do this body of work in this period of time.
Well, I am going to echo that sentiment. For those of you out there, I had the distinct pleasure of meeting her niece, Erica Hines, and talking to her, and talk about courage. I left that room ready to go and fulfill my passion and my journey. So don't take our word for it. I'm going to obtain that information, and I'm actually going to put it out on my social network so that you don't have to take our word for it. Go out there and read the information yourself. So I hate to go because I am pumped. I don't know about you, but I feel like I can leap tall buildings with a single bound. I even have on my Superwoman colors right now. But I want to just say thank you so much, Miss Karen Harper, President of BEST, for accepting the invitation to come and talk to us. You have shared so much wisdom, but don't leave now, because I'm going to put her information up here and I'm going to leave that on the screen for you all to take note. Again, Miss Karen Harper, President of Building Engineering and Science Talent. That is the logo. You can find out more about her organization at bestworkforce.org. If you are interested in talking to Miss Harper more, learning more about BEST, partnering with her, getting to know her niece, Miss Erica Hines, please send her an email to Karen, spelled Karen, .harper@bestworkforce.org. And of course, you can find her on LinkedIn and all of the platforms. I want to again just thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me in what is an inspiring conversation. I'm going to turn our music up a little bit, because that is good for my soul, specifically because my partner in life curated the beat. But folks, if you could please go out and learn more about BEST and the work that Miss Harper has been doing. She's been modest for probably 40 plus years. I want to humbly thank you again for joining us for Women's History Month. And you, ma'am, are leading with courage, leading and working with courage. I thank you so very much. Until we come back again with another phenomenal woman, please have a great day and enjoy Women's History Month. Thank you.